Hi guys, you're all welcome back to my channel. So as you can see on me on the screen right now, this is an abaya with an inner and a scarf. So if this is what you're interested in, you might want to stay to the end of this video. And please, if you have not subscribed to my channel, please do also subscribe to my channel and turn on your post notification bell so you get notified whenever I post a new video. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. So let's get right into the tutorial. So for the inner, I'm going to be using 2 yards of this off-white crepe fabric, and then for the kimono or abaya, I'm going to be using 4 yards including the scarf. So we're going to be drafting the inner first. So our fabric is on fold. So what you're going to use to fold it is the full length of your hem, how wide you want your hem to be. So for me, I used 18 inches, so I folded it by 18 inches. As you can see, I used my pin to hold it down because this fabric is moving a lot because it's a bit slippery. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to mark my shoulder measurement. My shoulder divided by 2 measurement, which is 8 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and mark it like so. So now I'm going to mark my neck width. So for my neck width, I'm going to go in by 3 inches, as you can see. So for the neck depth, here I used 3 inches, but at the long run, I made it deeper. I made use of 5 inches instead because I noticed the neck was too high. So the next thing I'm going to do now is I came in from the shoulder by 1 inch because this inner is armless and I don't want the shoulder to be too wide, so I came in by 1 inch, as you can see. So now I am marking my vertical measurement. So at first I marked 10 inches my bust point, so I marked my waist point, and here I marked my hip point. So you can also use 9 inches from your waist to your hip point. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw a straight line across. So on the new shoulder line, I came down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope, and then from that 1 inch I came down by 7 inches instead of 8 inches, which is my normal armhole depth, because I don't want the armhole to be too wide since it is an armless gown. So I'm just going to draw a straight line across. So that is the armhole depth, and then I'm going to extend the line like so. So on that armhole line, or we can call it our chest line, I marked my bust measurement divided by 4, which is 10, and then I went ahead to add 3 inches, 1.5 inches for allowance and 1.5 inches for ease. On the waistline, I marked my waist measurement divided by 4, as you can see me doing, and then I also added 3 inches allowance. Also on the hip line, I marked my hip measurement divided by 4, as you can see me doing, and then I also added 3 inches allowance, 1.5 for sewing allowance and 1.5 inches for ease. So I marked the midpoint of the armhole depth, as you can see me doing, and then I used my free hand to just draw the armhole curve like so. So if you can't use your free hand, you can use your French curve. So on that midpoint, I came in by 1/2 inch. So I just followed that point to draw the armhole curve. So I'm just going to connect the whole point with my ruler, the whole body measurement, as you see me doing. So I noticed the allowance I added was too much, so I reduced it by 1 inch. So it's remaining 1 inch for ease and then 1 inch for sewing allowance. So that is what I have now. So I'm just going to follow that line. I'm going to draw all the way to the hem of the dress. So I'm using the full length of this fabric. So I'm just going to draw to the hem. So make sure your fabric is well folded. This fabric I'm using is a bit tricky. That's why I'm trying to make it stable. I'm struggling to make it stable, but please, you can use your pin to hold it down. So I connected from the hip line to the end of the fabric. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut it out now. So we didn't do the shoulder slope, as you can see me doing now. I'm connecting the shoulder slope, and then I'll go ahead and cut out the rest. So as you can see that I'm trying to secure the fabric with my pin to stop it from moving. So this is the hem of the front pattern, as you can see, And so this is what our front pattern is looking like. So we're done with the front pattern, and we're going to just use this front pattern to cut out the back pattern. So I've gone ahead to cut out the back pattern using the front pattern, and the only difference is that I added 1 inch allowance for the zipper, as you can see, just for the zipper. And then the neck I used 2 inches, but at the long run I made it 4 inches. So please make use of 4 inches, because I noticed the neck was too high, so I made the front 5 inches and then the back neck 4 inches. So for the abaya, I folded my fabric into 4, because we're going to be cutting the front and the back together. So I folded it twice first, and then I folded it again, so into 4. So that folded part, I'm going to be marking my shoulder measurement divided by 2. Then I added 2 inches extra, because it's going to be like oversized and not fitted. So instead of 8 inches for my shoulder, I used 10 inches. So the next thing I'm doing now is marking my neck width 3 inches, and then for the neck depth I came down by 3 inches. So using my free hands, I'm drawing the neckline. You can use your French curve if you cannot use your free hands. So on the shoulder I came down by 1 inch, and then I connected my shoulder slope, as you can see me doing. So from that 1 inch that I came down by, I came down by about 9.5 inches for my armhole depth, because this abaya is not going to be fitted. So I added about extra 1.5 inch to my normal armhole depth, which was 8. So I used 9 inches for the armhole depth. So I'm just going to draw the straight line. So the next thing I'm doing now, from the shoulder I came down by 16.5 inches. That is my waistline. And then from that waistline, come down by 9 inches. That is your hip line. So on the armhole depth line, which is serving as the chest line, I'm going to mark my bust measurement divided by 4, which is 10 inches. And then I went ahead to add 2 inches for ease, and then I added 1 inch for sewing allowance. So on the waistline, I'm going to mark my waist measurement divided by 4, as you see me doing, and then I'm also going to go ahead and add a total of 4 inches for the allowance. You know, on the chest line I used 3 inches, 2 for ease and 1 for sewing allowance, but on the waistline I made use of 4, 3 for ease and 1 for sewing allowance, because I don't want the waistline to be so fitted since it is an abaya. So on the hip line, I marked my hip measurement divided by 4, and then I also added 3 inches for ease and then 1 inch for sewing allowance, as you see me doing. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw the body measurements by connecting all the dots. So you don't have to follow my exact allowance measurements. Depending on how big or how fitted you want it to be, I advise you to use how much allowance you want. So you can follow mine, or you can use yours just to customize it according to your body shape. So on the armhole depth, I marked the midpoint, and then I went in by half an inch on the midpoint, and I drew my armhole curve, as you see me doing. So I'll go ahead and cut it out. So after cutting it out, I picked out one of the two as the front pattern. So you know the front is going to be opened. So at the middle, I am going in by 2.5 inches all the way down from the neckline to the hem. I'm going to go in by 2.5 inches to cut it open. Remember, you are doing this for only the front pattern, not the front and back. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it out like so. So the next thing is to draft our sleeve. So I folded my fabric into 2 on the wrong side. So now I'm marking the full length of my sleeve. I'm using 22 inches. Though my sleeve is 21 inches, but I'm using 22 inches for extra allowance. So from the shoulder, I came down by 3.5 inches, and then on that 3.5 inches point, I marked 9.5. Remember, we used 9.5 as the armhole depth, so I added 1.5 inches allowance. So from that 1.5 inches allowance point, I'm going to draw a straight line to the shoulder, as you see me doing. So now I'm going to mark the midpoint of that line. So you measure the whole measurement and then you mark the middle. So I'm just going to use my free hands to draw the armhole curve like so. You can use your French curve if you cannot use your free hand. So from the shoulder, I'm going to be coming down by 7 inches. So that is where I'm going to mark my arm measurement, like my arm circumference measurement. My arm circumference measurement divided by 2 is 5.75. Though I'm not going to be following that measurement, I'm just using it as a guide, as because it's a bell shaped hand. So I'm just going to use my free hands to draw the bell shape as you see me doing. You connect it to the hem of the sleeve. So I just use that arm circumference measurement as a guide to know when I'm going to curve. So that is all for this sleeve. This is a bell shape and a free sleeve. So it's only the shoulder and armhole curve measurements you need to do. So you can go ahead and cut it out. So I'm gonna have to cut it out and cut out the second sleeve as well. So now let us sew. This is the inner that we're beginning with. So the first thing we want to do is that we're going to use our bias to turn the neck for both the front and the back. So we're going to use the bias. So you're going to sew it on the front, like on the right side of your dress, of your fabric, as you see me doing. Then after that, you're just going to turn it to the back like this and then stitch on it. So that is how to use your bias to turn the neck. We're also going to do the same for the armhole. So we're going to turn the neck and the armhole for both the front and the back pattern. So this is what it is looking like after turning the neck and the armhole with our bias. So the next thing we want to do is to place the shoulder right side facing right side like so, and then I'm going to go ahead and stitch it. So this is what the shoulder is looking like after joining it, as you can see. So the next thing we want to do is to close the sides. We're going to stitch the sides. So you place it right side facing right side like so, and then I'm going to stitch it with my 1 inch sewing allowance for both sides. After that, the next thing we're going to do is to close the back. So we're going to place the back together, right side facing right side. So I'm using my zip to measure where I'm going to start sewing from. So I marked where my zip will stop, and so from that point I'm going to sew all the way down to the hem with my 1 inch zipper allowance. So after that, I'm just going to go ahead and install the zipper as well. So this is what our inner is looking like after installing the zipper. As you can see, it has been installed perfectly and neatly. So the next thing I want to do is to stitch the hem. So I'm just going to fold the hem in using 2 inches, or how much allowance you added, to just stitch it all the way around. So this is what our hem is looking like after stitching it, and we have come to the end of this inner, and this is all for the inner. So for the abaya, this is the back pattern. So I'm going to place the front pattern on the back pattern, as you see me doing, right side facing right side. So I'm going to place the shoulder together like this. So the first thing we're going to sew is the shoulder. We're going to place it as you see me doing and stitch the shoulder together with about 1/2 inch for both sides. And I'll also stitch the side using my 1.5 inch sewing allowance for both sides. I'm going to stitch it all the way from the armhole to the hem. So this is what it is looking like after stitching the shoulder and the sides, as you can see. So the next thing I want to do now is to stitch the band on the front opening. So the total width of this band is 5 inches. So on fold it's going to be 2.5 inches. So you are going to put it on fold like this, and then you take one end of the band and we're going to stitch from the hem. So you are going to place your band right side on the hem of your fabric on that opening. So you are going to stitch it all the way with about 1/2 inch, all the way up, all around to your neck, to your neckline, and all the way around to the other end. So this is what our abaya is looking like after stitching the band. As you can see, it is coming out already. So the next thing we want to do is to work on the sleeve. So I'm gonna have to cut out both sleeves. as you saw earlier. So I'm going to make a pleat at the hem of the sleeve. So I cut out this long piece of fabric. It is about 4.5 inches wide. So I'm going to fold one end twice and stitch it all the way, so that will be the hem. So after stitching, I'm going to just go ahead and place the unstitched part right side facing right side on the sleeve hem. So I'm just going to go ahead and pleat it as you see me doing. So this is what the sleeve looks like after pleating, making this small pleat. So I'm also gonna add to stitch the sides of the sleeve. I've closed the sleeve, and this is what our sleeve is looking like. So for that pleat to come out well, you need to press it very well with your iron. So now the next thing we want to do is to join the sleeve to the body of the abaya. So we are going to take the notched part, the shoulder, and place it on the shoulder of the main abaya, and then I'm going to go ahead and stitch it all the way around. I'm going to stitch it right side facing right side all around. So that is how you join the sleeve. You can use your pin to hold it down. So this is what my abaya is looking like after joining the sleeve. As you can see, it is coming out nice already. It is giving already. So I'm also gonna add to stitch the hem. So I folded it in like we did for the inner and stitched it all the way round from the front opening all around. So I'm gonna have to cut out this 5 inches wide piece of fabric for the rope, and then I'm just going to stitch the rope. So this is what it is looking like after stitching the rope and turning it to the right side. So here I have also stitched the side of the scarf. So we have come to the end of this tutorial. As you can see on the screen, the outcome of this beautiful abaya. So see you guys in my next video.